Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, T.Dot. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into the content, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like, and let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. And also make sure you go to Spotify. As always, search From the Shed End and you'll be able to find episode 63 of the podcast. Is on there. Make sure you give it a listen. Let me know your thoughts as well about that. And also check out our earlier live stream that myself and Theo did as the Premier League fixtures were announced and out for 22-23 season, and let us know your thoughts as well. Everton away, first game of the season, and I think we end on Newcastle. We'll talk a little bit about that during this video as well. But of course, we've got to start one place and one place only. Romelu Lukaku. I feel disappointed by Romelu. I have to be honest. I think now that the conversations are happening between the clubs, between Inter Milan and Chelsea, we were scammed. Let's be real. We were scammed. It's one of those things where, I don't know if you've ever heard the story of the guys that used to have the boxes of TVs and sell them in the car parks at retail parks, and then you'd go and buy the TV, and then when you get home there was like a bunch of weights in the box rather than a TV. They'd show you the TV before you brought it, but then you'd go and get home and you'd find that they'd conned you. They'd swap the box without you realizing. We've been conned. We've literally been conned by £97.5 million of waste. Now, I hope for Lukaku's sake, the deal does go through and we actually get some money out of this. We recoup some money. I think yesterday's news broke. There was a sort of conversation between two clubs, Inter and Chelsea. I think there was a deal that Inter were offering around €5 million or £5 million in terms of a fee for the loan. Now, Chelsea obviously want a lot more than that. They want, I think, from what I originally heard, it was £20 million in terms of a loan fee. Now, I think Chelsea have reduced that down to 10 million. So there's only a £5 million gap in terms of what the expectation is from Inter Milan and what Chelsea would like in terms of a loan fee. Now, another key area that was discussed yesterday was in terms of the actual obligation to buy Lukaku after the loan. Now, yesterday's reports were suggesting that there was no obligation to buy in the deal that was put on the table or was suggested by Inter Milan. I think Simon Phillips this morning has confirmed that there will be an obligation to buy Romelu Lukaku after that loan deal. And I think that's only right. I think, why would we spend close to £100 million on a player who didn't do fuck all for us all season, apart from score the odd goal, and we loan him out to the club we brought him from for a cut price in terms of what we wanted in a loan fee, and then when they're done with him, they can give him back to us and he doesn't perform anymore. I think his days are done at the club. I think the fact that he's flew back from his his international break, he's flew back and he wants to get this deal done. He's convinced Thomas Tuchel and Todd Bowley to sell him, albeit by loan, and then with a sale at the end of that loan, tells you that he does not want to be at this club. He doesn't want to be at the club. And the worst thing about it is as well, Inter Milan cannot afford him. There's so many off-field issues with Inter Milan, which is the reason they sold him in the first place to us, is the reason why he can't just necessarily go back and sign for them. And I do think Chelsea, if they're smart, will look at this deal now and use it to their advantage. They will look at it and say, well, where do we need players? Who can we bring in and use part of the deal to take Lukaku out of the club and bring someone from Inter Milan into our team? Whether that's Martinez or it could be any of the players that we've been linked with. But I think we have to be smart with this deal. If we're not careful, we will end up still with Romelu Lukaku in a Batshuayi situation or a Danny Drinkwater, Bakayoko situation. We have to be very careful in terms of the deal that is put out there. It has to have an obligation to buy. There's no ifs or buts about it. We cannot have this guy at the club next season. We can't. Worst case scenario, we don't have the number 9 that we so crave for at the club. We go back to how we did with the false 9 in terms of Kai Havertz, who, for me personally, if I'm going to be 100% honest, next season we have to build our squad around Kai Havertz, because we saw glimpses of what he can do when Lukaku wasn't in the team, whether that be because of his attitude or his injuries or whatever the case was. But we got to see that Kai Havertz can play through the middle, and he can play in that number 9 role, and he done it really well as well. So I think we need to build around him, whether that's Ousmane Dembele or Christian Pulisic or whoever, but we have to build around Kai Havertz. We also need to factor in Mason Mount into that as well. And of course, if we do get Dembele and Declan Rice into the team as well, I think we don't necessarily need to go out and pull a number 9 out the hat. You know, we've got players there that can do the job. So Nkunku's another one that we've been linked with, but RB Leipzig are very reluctant to sell him. I think they're almost trying to offer him a new contract to lure him to stay at the club for a little bit longer. So I think if we can get someone of that caliber in, I wouldn't be massively disappointed. I think he's a very good player. I think he's someone that would fit into the way and the style of play that we play at Chelsea. But there has also been discussions around other players, and I'm going to show you those other players right now. Now, if we go to Simon Phillips, who's reported earlier on Twitter today around, first of all, as I just mentioned, around Christopher Nkunku, price tag's 100 million euros. It's that much, I can't even say it, but 100 million euros. RB Leipzig seem to really want to try and hold on to him, so they're trying to offer him a contract in the summer. But one of the things that I do want to look at and mention as well is around the discussions around Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling, who are the two players that I believe, well, first of all, Gabriel Jesus has actually been offered to Chelsea in terms of coming to the club. We haven't gone out to get him. He's coming to the club because he's been offered to us, which is a massive difference in terms of what we've had in the past as well. And for me personally, I think, you know, if we can bring in, as I said, I think I have my reservations with Gabriel Jesus, but for someone who can play in the Premier League, someone who knows where the back of the net is, he just doesn't do it consistently enough. I think it would be a really good signing if we can bring him in. But of course, we have players here. I mean, look, Inter defenders, Alessandro Bastoni is one of the players that we are heavily linked with. Now, if we can utilise Bastoni as part of the deal to take Lukaku out of the club and to bring in, crying out for centre-backs, for me personally, it makes no sense to not try and do that. So I think we need to look at that. I think we need to talk about the fact that if Lukaku does go out of the team, then how do we, we're freeing up a lot of the wages that we were paying him. You know, there's so much that we have to factor into this, bearing in mind if Inter Milan do agree to pay his wages, because initially I think we were told that there was no there was going to be a part payment in terms of how much Inter would pay in terms of wages and how much Chelsea would need to pay in terms of wages for Lukaku. But if we can offload him altogether, and at the end of that loan deal he's not our problem anymore, then so be it. Brilliant, we've done what we needed to do. But just in terms of Gabriel Jesus, who I mentioned in a couple of videos ago, I think he's a player that will fit into the team if we can get him playing consistently right. If we can get it right, we've hit the nail on the head. We've done what we needed to do. Raheem Sterling is another one, inside forward, someone that can come in and play that role, almost like Kai Havertz as well, as a false 9, but someone that likes to cut in, likes to take on defenders, likes to get the ball into the box, someone that can make something happen in that front three. And I think he is someone that arguably would make a difference in that front three as well. But our main priority for me personally is to get this Lukaku deal done. I think I read also as well, the deal has to be done by the 30th of June. So this is in terms of off-field sort of monetary and tax reasons from Inter Milan side, that they have to get this deal done by the 30th of June. So this is potentially why Romelu Lukaku's come back to the club early to get this resolved, why Inter Milan are now pushing for this deal to go through, and also as well why Chelsea are probably more accepting of a lower loan fee that they expected in terms of the 20 million, and opposed to now wanting only 10 million. So you have to look at it from those kind of angles. As Chelsea fans, do we want to keep a player that's unhappy at the club, potentially playing majority of the cup games, or in a development squad, or in our team in a senior squad, and not actually performing all season? Or do we want to try and offload him maybe at a lesser price than we expected to get him at the end of that obligation to buy? For me personally, we have to cut our losses and say that we made a massive mistake. We were conned, out of the whole deal. You know, it's only this time last year we were all talking about, you know, Lukaku coming back to the club and wanting to be the player that he was expected to be, you know, all those years ago, and coming back into this team where he was supposed to be the main, the guy. He was meant to be the one that drove us to the Premier League, and he didn't do that. He done anything but that. And to have someone like that in a team, for me, is very toxic, and it's very dangerous, because I think, you know, we know that he's obviously a massive personality in the dressing room, for right or wrong. And I think to have someone like that disrupts the team. He disrupted the team last season as well, especially after the interview came out. We had that massive game coming up the day after as well. So I think we've got to get rid of him. Get him out the team. Bring in Nkunku, or bring in Gabriel Jesus, or bring in whoever. But we've got options there. And I think, for me personally, if we can bring in someone who is proven in terms of playing in the Premier League, for me, is what sways me. So I'm swaying towards Gabriel Jesus for that reason, or Raheem Sterling. But Nkunku is a very good player. 100 million seems very over the top. But obviously, if RB Leipzig are trying to keep him, retain him, it tells you that there's a player in there that potentially could do us a very good job in that attacking field as well. But before we wrap up, I do want to talk about, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the fixture list did come out. And myself and Theo, if you haven't already, go and check out our live stream that we did early at 9 o'clock this morning, where we talk a bit more in depth about the fixtures and what to expect coming up this season as well. But just looking at the fixtures now, obviously we've got Everton, who for me, first game of the season is going to be a massive game. We haven't won there for a couple of years in the Premier League. So to go there, get that game out the way, as some people put it on Twitter earlier this morning, I'm confident. I think we haven't had the best of records going into our opening games of the season. We've had some ups and downs. I spoke earlier about the Coventry game 1998, where we lost 2-1. Gus Poyet scored. I think it was Darren Huckabee and Dion Dublin for Coventry scored. Obviously the Burnley game, which is a massive game. Man United a couple of seasons ago as well. So there's been some really tough opening games of the season, and I think for me, the crucial parts of the season will definitely be October, will definitely be April, where you look at those games, you look at those fixtures, and incorporate the Champions League into that, or the FA Cup into those busy periods of the season, October and April. You know, it's a massive concern for us if we don't bring in the right players and the right level of depth of quality of players as well. You know, we've got to talk about the fact that there's 5 subs coming in now. Do we really want to be bringing, you know, Sal Niguez? Sorry, not Sal Niguez. Do we really want to be bringing Malang Sarr off the bench and, Ruben Loftus-Cheek every given opportunity? I think we need to bolster that midfield with a Declan Rice, as I keep saying on every video, but we need to get quality in, not just players that can come off the bench. I think we need to get the quality and get that right as well this summer. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Who and what games are you looking forward to? Obviously, all of them if you're a Chelsea fan, but I think in terms of the end of the season, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, end of the season, Man City, second to last game of the season. And interestingly as well, we've only got 2 games in November and 2 games in December. So you do have to factor in, obviously the World Cup is there. What will the players come back? What will the conditions of the players come back like? Will they be fully fit? Will they need to have, some time to re-energize or to reconnect back into the Premier League? So it's going to be a busy season. I think the fact that we play Man City, Crystal Palace and Liverpool in January, potentially with a cup game in there in terms of the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup as well. It's going to be a busy period like we did last season, and I think the crucial thing we need to do is make sure we've got the quality in depth. We have to have the players in depth that can come on, make changes. We have to factor in the fact, we lost some key players: Ben Chilwell, N'Golo Kante, Reece James, Mateo Kovacic, Jorginho for long periods, Lukaku to an extent if we're going to go that far. But we lost key players, in key moments of our season last season. We can't afford to do that this season. We have to have the right level of depth, very much like Man City, very much like Liverpool can as well. They can bring on and off players, and they've obviously increased to the numbers of that as well this season. But we have to get this right this season. We have to put in performances against the likes of Nottingham Forest, against Bournemouth, against Leeds, against Brentford. Those teams that we should have beaten last season, in terms of, you know, a Brighton or someone like that, where we struggled to beat them, or Burnley last season, we struggled to beat them. Those teams that we expect to beat, we have to beat them this season. Otherwise, there's no point us trying to even push for the Premier League. It doesn't matter who we bring in. We've got to get the transfers right and the recruitment strategy right. That's 100% correct. But in terms of when we get that in and we get the right players in, it's all down to the players. The players have to go out there and perform against the likes of Fulham, who, you know, we know is obviously our closest rivals in terms of geography. But we have to play against those teams and play well and convincingly as well. Not 1-0s, not 2-0s. We have to tear them apart like Man City do, like Liverpool do. We have to tear them apart, because if we don't, we'll be in the same position we was last season. So for me personally, I'm happy with the fixture list. I'm happy with the first month. I'm happy with the last month, which is the two areas that I really focus on. It'd be interesting about October and April. But as I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think. Who are you looking forward to playing? Who would you've liked to have had first game of the season, last game of the season? Let me know in the comments. Also, as you can see at the bottom, make sure you follow all those social accounts as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, smash the like button. Of course, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll be back with another video very soon. Thanks for watching.